Mazda 3. I have tested a lot of Mazda 3s in the past already with this equipment, that equipment, with this engine, that engine, with the automatic, not automatic, the X engine, the non-X engines, and they were all great. But this time I have something I haven't done yet, which is the the least powerful 2-liter gas engine, the 122 horsepower. But that's, I think, not really the point here. We'll be testing this, but the actual question I have in this video is, why don't more people buy Mazdas or Mazda 3s in general? Because when you look at it, it is beautiful, especially in this white pearl color. Why aren't there more of them on the roads? So under here is the 2-liter gas engine with about 122 horsepower. But there's two major points, two major pluses here with Mazda engines. One is the fact that, at least over here, you will never get a turbocharged gas engine, which means no turbine, no problems in the long run, lower maintenance costs, and so on and so forth. So that's good. But also the other thing is, when everyone quite a while ago started downsizing, where the engines were getting smaller and smaller and smaller and having less cylinders, where now you've got like 0.9 liters 3-cylinder engines, which are supposed to drink less fuel, but in the long run they actually drink more because you have to hammer them. Mazda went the other way and they said, we're not doing downsizing, we're doing right sizing, which is the correct size for the correct car. So in this case, a 2-liter engine. And they go for even bigger engines, the 3-liter ones, the 3.3 something diesel engines, which we'll be testing soon. So that's a big plus in my book. With a Mazda, you're of course getting Japanese reliability because they make them in Japan and then ship them over here. So in the long run, you really should have less problems with this car than you would with some other brands, for example. The next thing is, ignore the dirt on the car, because unfortunately it's this time of the year and there's a lot of mud on the ground, so never mind that. But the other thing is, a lot of people don't actually know what this Sky Active is supposed to mean, which is on a lot of Mazdas. And that's actually their sort of thinking, general thinking at Mazda, Sky Active thinking, which means that everything needs to be as light as possible, which improves the handling capability, lowers the emissions and fuel consumption because the car is lighter, and also makes it more comfortable. Of course, there are minuses, not with Sky Active, but here with this model, so I'm not just giving you pluses. This car at the back does not have independent suspension, it's got an axle, which, well, it's not going to be as good in the corners as a car without an axle. So there you go. And the good news continues inside here, because the interior is very pleasant. It's nice to sit inside here. The seats are comfortable. These are textile ones. You can get leather wrapped ones. The steering wheel is very nice to the touch, comfortable. It's heated only on some parts. Unfortunately, it's not heated throughout the entire steering wheel. You've got clicky, awesome mechanical buttons. Everything you touch is so nice. The manual transmission, which is basically in all of Mazdas, if you get the manual transmission, is really truly excellent and a joy to use. The infotainment doesn't jut out like some weird art thing. It is just a very, very pleasant place to be. And the thing is, you get so much equipment as standard, at least over here. It might be a little different where you are, where you're buying a Mazda, but you get so much equipment as standard. I mean, you get LED lights, you get this infotainment screen, you get a reversing camera, you get this half digital, half analog instrument cluster, you get a head-up display projected onto the windscreen. And Mazda has been doing that for a while. A lot of manufacturers have given you the option of a head-up display, But a lot of them have only started with one of those, flip up plastic screen things. I believe Mazda did as well, if I remember correctly, but for a while now they've been just giving you a proper windscreen or windshield head-up display as standard. That's ridiculous. It's really nice. Also heated seats and heated steering wheel and a bunch of things. In fact, I looked it up and there's only a few extras you can get here. I believe you can get the improved sound system, the leather seats and such. So whatever you get, your only options really are leather seats, sound system, and a different engine and transmission. Let's talk a little bit about this engine, finally. I do have to say that I was a little bit skeptical. I thought to myself, well, it is a 2-liter engine, so that's good. It's not some sort of 0.7 liter something, half a cylinder one. But it doesn't have a turbine, which means, of course, naturally aspirated, which means not that much torque. And you really have to push it into the higher RPMs to get the power out of it. And I was a little bit skeptical because 122-ish horsepower is not that much today because cars got a lot heavier. But again, I am pleasantly surprised. It is definitely not a racer, but it holds its own. Yes, you have to push it into the higher RPMs. You have to shift more if you need speed, if you want to overtake, and so on and so forth. But it is just surprisingly a surprisingly nice engine. In fact, I don't know. I think I would be quite happy with it. My first car had a 1.8 liter 4-cylinder naturally aspirated gas engine, which was very similar to this. This is a little bit more powerful, probably has a bit more torque, but I am surprised. The biggest thing with this engine, I think, is the refinement. Yes, it has a 2-cylinder mode, which is, a little clickety-clackety when it switches to it. But that's beside the point. The biggest thing is it is so quiet. Most of the time, if you're driving normally like this, the only thing you will hear if you have the radio off is the sound of the tires. Nothing else. No engine. It's amazing. This is not true just for the Mazda 3. This is true of practically every Mazda model, but it's the fact that they drive so nice. Forget the rear axle. Let's forget about sporty driving right now, but it's just everyday use and everyday feel inside the car. Because everything feels so nice and refined, it is just an incredibly pleasant experience to be driving the car and to be sitting inside it. Because every time, everyone that rides with me in this car or drives it says, this is a really pleasant car. I love Mazdas, if they've driven in more of them. And again, this is not an advertisement. We're not being paid for it. This is just my opinion. This is both of our opinion with my colleague, that Mazdas just in general are really pleasant cars. And like I said, again, just go and test one if you're interested in Mazdas, because they are just so pleasant. It's such a joy to be in. And now we get to the fuel consumption, which at the moment it's just got down from 6 to 5.9 liters per 100 kilometers. So that's sort of to be expected. It's not the greatest result, to be honest. You have to understand, of course, that I have been driving this to get this result reasonably economically, but also about 50, maybe 60% of that was on highways at 130, and some of it was also in traffic jams. So that will definitely get your fuel consumption up. But I would say that realistically, if you do a lot of highway driving and such, you will probably see somewhere around this average, 6 liters thereabouts. Because on the highway it does go higher, and driving slowly like this, it does go lower, of course. So again, it's maybe not the best result, but it is to be expected from a naturally aspirated engine that has to be pushed a little bit more to get the torque out of it. So that question again, why are these Mazdas not sold more? Well, my colleague over there behind the camera would probably explain this with a lot more hot peppers involved, so I'm going to do it a little more mellow. But the first problem, at least over here, I suppose, is marketing. There's just not enough marketing, or it's not good enough. I'm not sure, but these cars should really sell more. The second one is, what's the matter? Is it because it's not an SUV? Is it because it's a regular boring car? How is this boring? Look at it. It's got this huge front. It's got this amazing back with dual exhausts. It looks fantastic. It looks absolutely amazing. And it's going to drive better. It's going to be more economical and more comfortable than an SUV. Sure, maybe there's not going to be as much space in there, but still. Is it the problem that it's so low to the ground that you can't sit behind the wheel? Come on, seriously. This car is fantastic. There's no question about it. It's just not selling as much for some reason.